What's up everyone, we're back at it again. My name is Brad and welcome back to my channel. Today what I want to do is I want to talk about a topic that's very important to us all, and that is how to take care of your houseplants during the winter time. The reason why this is important is because during the winter time, you'll notice that your plants are in a state of dormancy. And when this happens, you'll notice some changes within the leaves and the soil of your plant that you might find a bit troubling. Well, in this video, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks for how I take care of my houseplants in the wintertime that I'm hoping will help you out as well. So if you like this type of content, please be sure to subscribe to the channel as we march closer to 1,000 subscribers. With that, let's jump into it. So there are a couple of plants that I'm going to use in today's demonstration of how I take care of my houseplants in the wintertime. And I'm going to start off with the plant right behind me, the Monstera deliciosa. Here is the Monstera deliciosa that I have put in this pot. And I did this in one of my prior videos where I basically took the top cutting of my Monstera deliciosa vine, gave it a brand new moss pole, and then I also put in this Thai constellation that I got last season as well into the same pot. Before I get into the details of what I'm doing with this Monstera in the wintertime, I do want to address the elephant in the room, and that is the browning of the leaf here for my Thai. Now, this browning is just, it really occurred, or it first occurred when I did the transplantation. And I do believe that this is a result of transplant shock. There's really nothing of worry here. It's on a lower leaf. The most recent leaf is very, very healthy. So I'm not going to change up anything with my care routine for this particular Monstera. First things first is, how do I take care of the watering for this plant? When you get into the wintertime, you'll notice that your plant will really start to drink less water. And this is an important key thing that you should remember when you take care of your plants in the wintertime, because you don't want to overwater your plants. You have to remember what's happening when your plant is becoming dormant. Your state of dormancy is occurring when the length of daytime is shorter and shorter and shorter. So your plants really aren't getting as much sunlight as they would in the spring or summertime. And because your plant is getting less sunlight from outside, it's really photosynthesizing less and less. When your plant is photosynthesizing less and less, that means it's not going to really need to uptake that much water from your soil. If your plant doesn't uptake that much water from your soil, what you'll find is your soil will maintain a state of wetness for a longer period of time. This is something that is very key that you should remember, because you want to back off on the watering for your plant. During this state of dormancy and during this state of winter time, I have truly only given this particular Monstera about 2 drinks of water. So that's 2 full drinks of water where I have fully saturated the soil and I've drained it, and it has done just wonderfully. Oftentimes what you will find, or oftentimes what I find, is that people tend to want to water their plant as frequently during the wintertime as they do in the summer and spring. And when that happens, your soil will stay wet for longer periods of time. And during this period of time where the soil maintains that state of wetness, your roots are going to rot. When you have that root rot, it's going to affect the foliage. And when that happens, well, your plant doesn't look as beautiful. So the key here that I find personally when it comes to the moss pole is that I make sure that I don't feed the moss pole, or I don't water the moss pole at all during the winter and late fall. The reason is because when I water this moss pole, the sphagnum moss does stay wet. And you don't want the sphagnum moss to stay wet for an extended period of time, where you then have the foliage that is connected or attached to this moss pole getting damp and getting wet for too long a period of time, because then obviously you'll have decay. So I highly, highly, highly recommend that during the wintertime, if you have your plant on a moss pole, just be sure to ease up on the watering for the moss pole. Now let's get into some other plants. If you like videos like this and want to continue to see more videos about houseplant tips and tricks, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. It's totally free and would mean a lot. Thank you so much. Now let's get back into the video. Here is my Pilea peperomoides that I am making more into a tree form as opposed to a bushy form. And you've seen the older videos where I basically had a whole bunch of little pups that were popping out and I cleaned up the stem. I have only watered this Pilea peperomoides one time during this winter period. So we're in January right now. I still have maybe 2 or 3 more months where this will be fully dormant. And I'm probably going to give it one more drink of water. Similar to the Monsteras, you want to make sure that you allow for this soil to dry out, and you want to back off on that watering. If you don't back off on the watering, especially with your Pilea peperomoides, who have or which has very sensitive roots, you'll find that you'll get root rot as well. If you get root rot, your foliage would get damaged, and you just are going to be left with an overall unattractive plant. Now, I do have pups that are popping up, which is very cool, very exciting, which I love to see. And I'm not going to do anything with those pups during the state of dormancy because I want to not expose my plant to too much shock. And the reason why you want to avoid exposing your plants to too much shock is because when they are in this dormancy state, it takes a lot of energy and it takes a lot of, it just takes a lot from the plant to actually recover from any kind of shock that it is experiencing. And oftentimes it could lead to the downfall of your plant. So with that being said, if there's any kind of tweaks or any kind of things that you need to do with your plant that involves messing with the root system, such as plucking these pups, I would wait and highly advise that you wait too until the spring, early spring, summertime, even late fall would be okay to mess with this root system. Succulents can be tricky to some people when it comes to winter care, but I promise you it's very, very easy. This particular jade plant has been watered for a total of one time during the winter time, and that's because, well, it's a succulent. So this plant is storing a lot of water in the leaves. And because of that water store, there really isn't it really isn't necessary for you to water it too frequently because of the fact that, well, it's not drinking that much water. So when it comes to a jade plant, I highly recommend that you back off on the water completely to ensure that your plant will survive during the winter time and also to prepare it for the upcoming growing season. Now let's talk about one of my favorites, the Ficus elastica Taniki, and how I'm taking care of this during the winter time. Now the curious or the interesting thing about this ficus is that it's placed by 2 sun windows, so it is getting a lot of sunlight. Even so, I'm still backing off on the water. You can see that I do have a little bit of leaf curl, and the plant really does need a little bit more water than I'm giving it right now. I have watered this plant 2 times so far during the winter, and if we look now, we'll see that the soil it's fairly dry, at least for the first few inches. So it could use another drink. So I will give this another drink. And once it gets finished drinking, I'll unplug the bottom to allow for that excess water to drain out. Again, what you want to make sure that you're doing during this time is you want to keep in mind how much light is your plant getting during the winter time. You also want to keep in mind, what does the atmosphere around your plant feel like? Is it dry? Is it cold? Is it humid? Is it hot? Because all of these things are going to contribute to how frequently you're watering your plant. A perfect example would be if this plant was placed by an air vent or by a heat vent where it's just getting blasted by air, the plant is going to lose a lot of water via evaporation from the leaves. Because of that, I would most likely need to water this plant more frequently than what I'm doing right now. But again, I will water this plant another time, or excuse me, I will water this plant again, which will be the 3rd time during the winter. And I think that's going to be enough to get it through the rest of the dormancy period. It hasn't put on any new leaves yet, but I do see some darkening of the growth points, which indicates that a new leaf is trying to push out, but most likely it's not going to push out until the plant fully wakes up. So those are some quick tips and tricks of how I take care of my houseplants during the wintertime. If you have any specific questions about what you should do for your houseplants during the wintertime, please be sure to leave them down in the comment section and I will definitely respond to them. Again, what you want to make sure that you're doing when you're taking care of your plants during this state of dormancy is keeping an eye on the soil levels as well as keeping an eye on how much is your plant getting in terms of sunlight. When your plant is in this state of dormancy, the amount of light that it's getting is really going to be shorter or smaller than the amount of light that it would get during the spring and summertime. Because that amount of light is smaller, your plant is not going to want to feed as much as it does during the winter and summertime. So I recommend that you severely and significantly cut the amount of water that you're feeding your plants during this time period. I also recommend that you cut back on any kind of fertilization that you would give your plant because your plant isn't going to need it. It's not going to want it. It's just resting right now. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a nice thumbs up. And with that, my name is Brad. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you on the next one.